All right, today we're diving into a really urgent message from historian Yuval Noah Harari. He's sounding the alarm for governments about the AI revolution. And, it's not just a warning, it's really a call to action. It's all about the choices we have to make right now.
So let's just jump right in with this quote from Harari, because it really sets the stage. The big struggle in the 21st century might be the struggle against irrelevance. Now think about that. For centuries, right, the big fight was against exploitation, unfair labor, that kind of thing. But Harari argues that in the age of AI, the real danger, the bigger danger, is just becoming irrelevant, useless, from the perspective of the economic and political system.
And look, he's not talking about this like it's the next iPhone update. No way. He frames this as a fundamental, ground-shaking revolution, one that's going to transform, well, pretty much everything: our economy, our politics, and maybe even our own bodies and minds. This is a true turning point for humanity. Okay, so to get a handle on this huge shift, Harari breaks it down into three main dangers that he thinks governments absolutely have to get their heads around. We're going to walk through each one of them. So the first danger is all about the economy, and it could lead to something Harari calls, well, the new useless class. And we're not just talking about a few jobs getting automated here and there. No, this is about a massive societal upheaval that could create an entirely new class of people. Yeah, and the key thing to grasp here is that this isn't a one-and-done kind of thing. Harari calls it a cascade of ever bigger disruptions. So imagine this. You retrain for a totally new career when you're 40. Awesome. But then by the time you hit 50, that job, it's gone, automated away, and you have to start all over again. Can you even imagine the psychological stress of having to reinvent yourself over and over and over? And that right there leads to the big question, doesn't it? With this kind of relentless breakneck pace of change, what happens to the millions, maybe billions of people who just can't keep up, who can't reinvent themselves every 10 years? This is exactly where Harari drops that really stark and, pretty controversial term, the useless class. But he's super specific about what he means. It's not that you're useless to your kids or your friends or your partner. Not at all. It means you become irrelevant to the system, to the economy and the political machine, because it just doesn't need your skills anymore. And the fallout from that, it's just staggering. We could see the most unequal societies in all of human history. And not just between rich and poor people in one country, but between entire countries. You'll have some nations absolutely thriving on AI, and others, well, they could become what Harari calls data colonies, basically exploited for their data in the same way they were once exploited for oil or diamonds. So to really get why this is such a profound shift, you gotta look at the history of power itself. It's pretty simple, really. For most of history, what was power? Land. If you had land, you had power. Then the Industrial Revolution hits, and suddenly it's all about machines and factories. Now? Today, Harari says the single most valuable asset on the planet is data. And whoever controls that data, well, they control the future. Okay, so if data is the new source of power, that leads us right into the second great danger. And this one gets a lot more personal. It's the threat of using all that data, not just to take our jobs, but to literally hack us from the inside out. Harari actually has an equation for this. He says you take biological knowledge, you multiply it by massive computing power, and then you multiply that by tons and tons of data. And what do you get? The ability to hack humans. And with infotech and biotech merging, this isn't science fiction anymore. This is happening now. But what does that even mean? To be hacked? How can a human being get hacked?
Well, what it means is creating an algorithm that understands you better than you understand yourself. Harari gives this incredibly personal example. He says he was 21 years old when he finally realized he was gay, after years of denying it to himself. But he wonders, could an algorithm, just by tracking his eye movements and biometric data, have figured it out when he was 16? That's being hacked.
And once an algorithm knows you on that deep of a level, it can predict your feelings and manipulate your decisions. Think about a simple ad from Coca-Cola. But instead of just a regular ad, it's tailored to your secret subconscious desires. It's not showing you what you think you want, it's showing you what it knows you want. Now, take that same power and apply it to political propaganda. The danger is just immense. So this ability to hack us, to manipulate us, it all leads to the third, and honestly, the most chilling danger of them all.
And that's the potential for AI to create what he calls digital dictatorships. We're talking about the worst, most oppressive totalitarian regimes in all of human history, and to spark a brand new, absolutely terrifying global arms race. These are the real existential threats. We're talking about total surveillance regimes, systems that don't just watch what you do, but analyze your heart rate, your facial expressions, to know what you're thinking. We're talking about that data colonialism again, where entire nations have their destiny controlled by whoever has the data, whether it's in Silicon Valley or Beijing. And maybe the scariest of all, autonomous weapons, killer robots, machines that can hunt and kill people with zero human oversight. And as Harari warns, this isn't like any arms race we've seen before. If we let this thing escalate, it doesn't really matter who wins. It doesn't matter who builds the smartest AI or the deadliest robots, because in the end, humanity loses. Okay, but after painting this pretty grim picture, Harari makes a really important pivot, and this is key. His core message is actually one of hope. It's about our own agency. He's saying these dark futures, they're just possibilities. They are not prophecies. The most important thing we have to remember, he says, is that technology is never deterministic. It doesn't decide our future for us. I mean, think about it. In the 20th century, the same technology, trains, radio, electricity, was used to build communist dictatorships, fascist regimes, and liberal democracies. The tools themselves are neutral. It's the choices we make about how to use them that shape our world. Harari has this brilliant analogy to explain how we can handle this. Think about the World Cup. I mean, it's super nationalistic, right? Everyone's cheering for their home country. But the only reason it can even happen is because of global cooperation. Brazil can't play France if they don't agree on the same set of rules. And his point is, in the 21st century, to be a good nationalist, you also have to be a globalist. You have to cooperate. And maybe nothing shows the power of human choice more clearly than this satellite image. This is the Korean peninsula at night. You see that sea of bright lights? That's South Korea. And that patch of almost total darkness? That's North Korea. The difference isn't technology. It's not like North Korea doesn't know how to make electricity. The difference is politics. It's the choices each society made. And Harari's point is, it is going to be exactly the same with AI. So let's bring it all home. Harari warns us about 3 huge dangers: the rise of a useless class, the power to hack humans, and the terrifying threat of digital dictatorships. But, and this is the big but, his ultimate message is that none of this is set in stone. Our future is not yet written. You know, these new technologies, AI, biotech, they can be used to build very, very different kinds of societies. They can help us build something like heaven, or they can build a literal hell on Earth. So the final question is, which one are we going to choose? All right.